Hey friends, you caught me just shaking my head and asking maybe the same question that you're asking in your heart and minds, is how in the world did we get so messed up? We're going to answer that question on Sunday, and I hope you join us. But in the meantime, I just want to remind you that the problems and the pain that we read about on the pages of this newspaper can't fully be answered until we actually open the pages of this book, the Bible, the Word of God. God's eternal truth that's both timeless and it's timely. You see, it speaks to our needs today because God is forever speaking to our heart. And so when it comes to answering the question, how in the world did we get in such a mess? We've got lots of people who are willing to offer their opinion and their answers. Every politician points and says it's the other guy's fault, and every political party raises their fist and says they're the problem. And races push back at one another, and genders turn their backs to one another. Even preachers are in on the act. In fact, we've been doing it for generation upon generation. With every sermon point that we make, we extend that finger to somehow exclaim and drive home this to be true. Well, when I tell you that the answer to this question, how in the world did we get so messed up, is not found at the end of my preaching finger, but rather it's at the end of the three fingers that are extended and pointed back to me. And by the way, those three fingers are extended to you as well, and they remind us that man's greatest problem is spelled S-I-N. That's right, sin. Sin is our greatest problem. And what is sin? Sin is any action or, catch this, attitude against God. Not just an action, but it can be an attitude. In fact, we said there were three different types of sin last Sunday, and we said the first is that one where we fall short of the glory of God. And everyone's done it according to Romans 3:23. It means that God's created us not only for an eternal purpose, but God's created us with a plan for this day, for this moment. And when we don't live according to that plan, when we don't fulfill God's purposes today, we've actually fallen short of the glory of God. Anybody else want to raise your hand and say, guilty as charged? Every day, if I take my eyes off of Jesus for a moment, I stumble and fall short of the glory of God. If I fulfill my own purposes or pursue my own purposes rather than God's plan, guilty as charged. The next is called transgression, and that's not falling short, that's the opposite. It goes beyond. It means when we go beyond the limits and the boundaries that God has set in place for us. If you're traveling at 60 miles per hour in your vehicle and it's a 55-mile speed limit, you've transgressed the speed limit by 5 miles per hour. Now, why would God put limits and boundaries out there for us? Is it because He's a killjoy and He doesn't want us to have any fun? No, it's because He loves us, and He doesn't want us to end up on the headlines of the local newspaper page. He wants to keep us from the pain and the troubles and the problems we read about here. He wants to bless us, and He wants us to live within proximity of Him. When we stay close to Him, He is our shepherd, and we, like sheep, staying close to Him, we benefit from His closeness. We benefit from all the good things in life. And when we come to understand that, we want to live each day as close to Jesus as we can, rather than seeing how far away from Christ we can live and still be a Christian. Maybe I'm speaking to somebody today who's a Christian, but you spend a lot of time on the fence, looking over into the world, wondering what it would be like, and maybe even asking, hey, why can't I do that? What's so bad about that? Well, friends, what's so bad about that is it's sin. And those are the very things that have led to the problems we're facing in this world. How did we get such a mess? It's because we've sinned. And sin has affected all the planet from generation to generation. And you know where it's born? It's born in the heart. And that's iniquity. Iniquity is when I have an attitude that is against God. It simply means that I'm seeking my own will ahead of God's way. It simply means that sometimes I do the right thing, but I do it for the wrong purposes. Rather than glorify Him, I do it for my own good. It appears that I'm being kind and I'm being compassionate, but oftentimes it's simply to manipulate. It's with wrong motivations. And so God help us to see that the mess we're in is because of this thing called sin. that we live in a broken world and we're broken people and our relationship with God has been broken, but there is an answer. The answer is Jesus, who came to not simply mend our broken lives, but to give us new life, abundant, full of joy, and targeted for heaven above. But until we get to heaven, He promises that He will be here with us. So how in the world did we get in such a mess? Well, we're going to talk about that on Sunday, and we're going to give you the answer to how we can get out of it. The fact is, you've got a choice. You can't determine and dictate what's going on in your life, but you can determine how you respond. Let's do it in faith, and let's be faithful to the one who is always faithful to us. Hope to see you Sunday. May the Lord bless you to be a blessing.